car's pretty much stripped. I got a couple hours to play with here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out some of the big rust spots that I have, not necessarily templates, but like good sized panels already cut out for. And the way I'm going to do it, and I think it's easiest, is to take a panel that's already cut, bigger than the area you're trying to repair, make the panel, cut that panel, and trace that on top of whatever part you're going to cut out, versus cutting out a section and then trying to make a panel to match it. I think it's easier to make the panel, trace it, and as long as you cut within those lines are close, it'll be pretty easy to fit, or I think it will be. So, yeah, if this doesn't make it, I got the time lapse going, which you're not going to see much because I'm going to be in the fender well, but fingers crossed the camera works this time. So, yeah, start cutting out some rust, see what happens. A side note, you can't make it any worse if it's already rusty, so.
I feel like somebody's watching me.
So hopefully you can see some of this, but this is what we're going to be cutting out today. Or I might do the other side. It's also got some big rot, but I have some, I did a couple of 3-inch patches, 3-inch square, and 3x4-inch squares. So I will see which patch fits over which rust spot the best, and then we'll trace it, cut it, and as long as there's solid metal outside of where I cut, we'll just fit the new one in, grind it, maybe tack it, see what happens. That was a lot of grinding. Nothing but grinding. That's fun. And it started off with, I'll make real precise cuts and file each opening to fit a plate even. Yeah, no. I'm not a body guy, nor do I really want to be. So I will sacrifice a little bit of fit and finish for speed. Because honestly, nobody's going to be able to see that. It's not going to be any less strong or structural by having the patch a little bit bigger than the hole. At least on some of them. Some of them will fit pretty well. But, oh my god. Jesus. That's a lot of grinding dust. Another thing most people don't think about, safety-wise, you should definitely be wearing a mask if you're grinding or cutting a lot of stuff. One piece, you can make the argument, you don't need to, it's not a whole lot, but that stuff, what's the term? Not carcinogen. It's kind of like a heavy metal. Like, once you breathe that in, it doesn't really come out of your lungs. I've been told that by multiple full-time fabricators, and I, would take their word for it because that's what they do for a living. So you'll notice a little ways through, I went to put a mask on because I could tell, throat was starting to itch. You could just feel it was getting aggravated. So, yeah, definitely wear the proper safety equipment when you're doing that stuff. Eyes, ears, and, a mask for breathing. But that's one side, probably 70% done maybe. Most of the big holes are cut. Most of the patches are kind of roughed in. I just gotta drill some holes in a few of them to spot weld to catch different layers underneath. And then yeah, I'll come back here and probably clean up a little bit more, clean up the metal around it, and start tack welding stuff in, get an idea what's going on, how I'm going to finish stuff. And then we still got the other side, which is worse, but I think it might be easier because I just have one big patch I'm going to put in and just cut out everything because there's so much rot in a somewhat small area. It just makes it easy. Instead of doing a bunch of tiny patches, might as well just cut it all out. That's like a 14 by 5.5 inch patch, so we'll trace that, cut it, and just lay one big fresh piece of metal in there. And then I gotta make patches for the frame rails still. I think the outside of that rail is okay. It's been patched before with a pretty big plate. The welds aren't that great, but it is a big fresh piece of metal, so I might clean up some edges and put some more welds in there. And then the inside, I'm not sure if it's on both or just, I know the driver's side needs a little help, so I'll grind down a spot and either put a patch over it or cut a square out and put a patch in there. And then once I get all that done, hopefully at least tacked in by the end of the weekend. I'd like to have all my patches you know, the holes cut, ground, stuff tacked in place by the end of the weekend. So throughout the week, I can go through and just, you know, finish well, you know, grind as much as I'm going to. It's not a show car, but kind of just clean everything up a little bit. And I still got to do all the tiny little holes throughout the bay that I want to plug. And then, yeah, you know, fingers crossed. It's a lot to do, but fingers crossed I might be trying to put my first coats of paint in the bay next weekend. At least, you know, that's a bit of a stretch, but it's a goal. We'll try to get it done by then. So then, you know, into February, maybe I could have the motor set back in here. Because once that's in there, I mean, not that we're almost done at that point, but that's just like a big milestone of having it in there. Because I still got to do. I'm gonna make an all new downpipe, same turbo manifold. Oh, sorry, nose running. Same manifold, new downpipe, new wastegate dump, which will also be recirculated into the exhaust. Also, just a bunch of little stuff. I'm taking the blow-off valve off the car just to make it cleaner. It's going to be a really low boost setup, so I don't think the compressor surge is not going to really affect the turbo too much. The thrust bearing can take the loads. Just little stuff to clean up. I mean, there's just a bunch of little projects that need to get done. A bunch. So, by the end of February, if I get the engine back in the car, you know, the base painted, engine back in, just sitting there on the crossmember, no, maybe, you know, doesn't have to have tranny on it or anything. I think I'll still be on schedule to make the April 10th event. So I think it will take a month to, you know, get the trans back up in there. Not that it takes long, but throw the tranny in, you know, get everything bolted up, make a new downpipe, make an entire new exhaust. Like, those two alone is, you know, a week and a half, 2 weeks with, you know, as much time as I can put into it here and there. So, I mean, that right there, if I've got the motor and stuff in the end of February, that's, you know, 2 weeks to go by the time that's done. And I still got to put everything back in the bay, bolt everything back up, pull some of the wires out of the harness, make brake lines. Like, there's a lot to do. So, we'll, I don't know. We'll see what we can get done. I don't want to get bummed and say I'm not going to make it already, but we'll just keep pushing, and if we don't make it, I'll still go and hang out, you know, cheer my friends on. I'm excited for Jesse's setup, which I might throw a picture in there. It's a widebody E30. It's a very aesthetically pleasing car. It's a very pretty car. I think it looks sick. And then I want to see what the new turbo setup is, because his old setup, it made the power bit, made it all up high, so it's got the old turbo off of this with, you know, a better manifold, and just, you know, it should just drive a just completely different car. He should have power from idle to redline pretty much. So I'm excited to see how that car turns out. He'll probably have it running in February. But yeah, I think that's it for today. See what else we get done later this week. Peace.